Keats wrote, "My imagination is a monastery, and I am its monk." Now, before we explore this monastery of curiosity, the first empowering C of Keats, let's keep in mind what we're really after. The American mythologist Joseph Campbell summed it up beautifully when he said, "People say that what we're all seeking is a meaning for life. I don't think that's what we're really seeking. I think that what we're seeking is an experience of being alive, so that our life experiences on the purely physical plane will have resonances with our own innermost being in reality, so that we can actually feel the rapture of being alive." Feelings are what we're all seeking from life, from every single decision we make and everything we ultimately say, think, and do. And increasingly, we're looking for those feelings in all the wrong places, from the reactions and opinions of others, from the marketplace and the workplace, from entertainment to substances, gambling, food, television, poor substitutes for the feelings of authenticity and aliveness that we truly desire and which live inside each and every one of us. And that's why we're experiencing a growing disconnect, like something's fundamentally missing from our lives. That feeling of aliveness was emphatically conveyed by Hunter S. Thompson when he wrote, "Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, 'Wow, what a ride!'" Now, you may view his rant as an extreme point of view. Fair enough. Thompson was a gonzo journalist, after all. But consider the flip side. The most commonly lived approach, as revealed by Bronnie Ware when she was working as a nurse, caring for terminally ill patients in the final weeks of their lives. See, Bronnie recorded their dying epiphanies and later compiled them in a memoir called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And what do you think was the most commonly expressed regret of all? "I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me." You see, the life others expect of you is your script. It's your imagined story. And you learn that script from the world, adjusting your performance until it generates the kind of you they want you to be. And eventually you come to see yourself as that you as well. But remember, you are not a character in a story defined by others and by an imaginary past. And what were the other 4 regrets, which are a direct result of living as a character in those stories? "I wish I hadn't worked so hard," story. "I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings," story. "I wish I had stayed in touch with family and friends," story. And "I wish that I had let myself be happier." Think about those contrasting sentiments. "I wish that I had let myself be happier," and "Wow, what a ride." Opposite sides of the same coin called life. So which side will you choose for your limited time as you on this beautiful planet? And are those your only 2 options? Think of it like this. Aristotle noted that when carpenters want to straighten a warped board, they don't put it in a jig that simply holds it straight. They put it in a jig that bends it in the opposite direction. So perhaps the best way to feel alive and to live a life of no regrets is to bend yourself in the opposite direction of society's warped outlook. Then deal with the tension and discomfort that will naturally arise, and eventually find yourself in a far better position than you could have ever imagined. Again, this is a choice. And due to years of conditioning, it appears to be a very perplexing choice. Trust me, I understand this. I'm not immune to this choice confusion. I've also made decisions that left me feeling dispirited and yearning for deeper connected experiences. But I now know the cause of those dysfunctional behaviors. I was hypnotized, living unconsciously in society's scripted story, locked up in an anxious mental cage of certainty, comparison, and comfort, hoping that something or someone would come along and set me free. I mean, really, as if the world somehow knew how I was feeling and what I needed and would come to my rescue. And so I would sit and wait and wait and wait. Do you know what happens if you keep a wild animal captive in a puny cage? It will pace back and forth and wait and eventually become listless and unimpressive. And that's because it's prevented from expressing its true self, its authentic nature. And what is human nature? It's also to be set free, to be curious, compassionate, and creative. So if you feel something lacking in your life, if you feel like you've been pacing back and forth in your mind, it's most likely because you've locked your nature, your imaginative inner self, in a mental cage of self-centered concern and conformity. But here is the reality, and please hear me. No one is coming to unlock your door because it's not locked. That's just another self-obsessed illusion. As George Lucas said, we're all living in cages with the door wide open. So let's stop waiting for the future to arrive. Let's get to our feet and simply walk out. Are you ready? I'll do it with you. But you must start, because in order to be you, you have to do you. You see, it's new, unexpected experiences that stimulate learning and create the feeling of being truly alive. And the very first step to that full and exciting life is the first of Keats's 3 C's: curiosity. So why is curiosity the essential first step of the process of freeing yourself, of being you? Again, it's because of how your brain is wired. When you first step out of your mental cage, your perceptions and feelings about the world will be conditioned by habituation, by your time spent in that cage, your culture, your history, your script. It's a very myopic, limiting point of view. I mean, as the author Robert Pirsig once said, we take a handful of sand from the endless landscape of awareness around us and call this the world. See, when you step out of your cage, your trained mind will overlook everything that it thinks it already knows about its world, its small world. Everything you see will have a preconceived notion, an expectation behind it, based on your past relationships and experiences. And since your perceptions drive your behavior, and your memories alone determine those biased perceptions, if you want to change your reality, you have to change your memories. Pretty weird, huh? Okay, stick with me. This is a very tricky idea to grasp. Now, I am not saying that you need to reinterpret or reframe your memories to make up new, empowering stories and create like new meaning about your past experiences. No, not at all. I'm saying that you have to expand your mental encyclopedia of experiences. The past perceptions stored in your brain, with new ones to draw upon. I mean, let's say that your first encounter with a dog was a terrifying one. Doesn't matter what others tell you, those embedded memories, animated, by the way, by your emotions, will create your fearful future perceptions. It's just, you simply know that dogs are dangerous, right? That is, until you create new dog memories by experiencing more dogs. Again, your past experiences direct your perceptions and predict your future, and therefore literally steer and create you. So to create a new you, you must create a new past to inform you. And you do that by changing your brain with new ideas and experiences. That's it. You don't have to wipe your memory clean like we did with Phil in our screenplay. I mean, and the truth is, you really wouldn't want to do that even if you could. I mean, memories are another beautiful paradox. To create a meaningful life from your unique perspective and with your unique voice, you must ultimately draw upon your memories and work with them and against them. What you have to do is physically change your brain by infusing it with new memories, new connections. And you do that by doing what the director of your script absolutely does not want you to do. And that's to tolerate the anxiety and tension inherent in leaving your cage, in not knowing, in stepping out of your story and into the darkness of uncertainty. You simply cannot remain comfortable and move forward in life at the same time. You just can't do it. You can't become what you truly are by remaining secure in your cage, content with what you've been led to believe and with who you've been conditioned to be. The cage will only disappear if you step further and further away from it by exposing yourself to situations and ideas that make you uncomfortable. As the great cosmologist Dr. Stephen Hawking said, the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. It is the illusion of knowledge, the cage. Leonardo da Vinci made the same point when he wrote, "The greatest deception men suffer is from their own opinions." Do you see? So you must challenge your opinions, those illusions of knowledge, especially about who you think you are, by trying to disprove them in the real world with new experiences. This is a very challenging first step to take. I mean, you have to learn to observe reality as it is and not how you imagine that it is or desire it to be. You have to resist your scripted feelings, especially ones of aversion, right? Oh, that's not me, or I don't feel like doing that. Instead, take action based on your intentions, and then keenly observe all of your fictional assumptions, the stories that Coleridge is shining his bright spotlight on, in order to keep you safe. Because those stories, those beliefs about the world and your place in it, are what are presently making you, you. It reminds me of the joke about the woman who leaves a restaurant one night and while walking home to her apartment realizes that she dropped her keys. So she gets down on her hands and knees and starts groping around beneath a lamppost. And a police officer walks up and asks her what she's doing. And she says, "I think I lost my keys back there in the park." The police officer says, "Then why the hell are you looking for them under this lamppost?" And she replies, "Because this is the only place I can see." You see, belief is like that lamppost. It's a contraction of light, a finer, more precise focus of your perceptions, which keeps you groping around in the same place. Because what you perceive depends on what you are looking for. Your desires and assumptions are literally the only things you can see. I mean, as Einstein put it, Whether you can observe a thing or not depends on the theory which you use. It is the theory which decides what can be observed. For example, how much do you think you get when you add 1 and 1? 2, right? I mean, are you certain? Of course you're certain. The answer flows out of you like an actor under the spotlight reciting her lines. Okay, how much do you get when you add 1 wad of chewing gum to another wad of chewing gum? Yeah, 1 wad of chewing gum. Do you see what your beliefs do to you? Do you have any idea what all of the cultural norms, the scripted stories, the characters, the roles, and the rules do to you once you've passively adopted and internalized them? They enclose you in a narrow yet well-lit cage of beliefs. As the writer who coined the term stereotype, Walter Lippmann, made clear, we are all captives of the picture in our head, our belief that the world we have experienced is the world that really exists. But a new experience and new realization, an expansion of light, can change that picture completely by showing you that your guesses about the world are just that. They're opinions. They're assumptions. I mean, during an interview about my last book, On Belief, someone asked me to define belief and to do so succinctly. So I remember answering, well, belief is simply a story in your head. And my casual response gave her a pause. I mean, what story is that, she asked me. And then I replied matter-of-factly, whatever story you're telling yourself to rationalize your feelings and your behaviors. She stared at me and like a bemused look on her face. So I did what I do. I asked her, some pointed questions just to wake her up and hopefully illuminate the answer. I said, do you like steak? I do, she replied. So I asked her, do you ever think about the cow? And then there was this long, uncomfortable pause. Do you see? I continued. The cow is not part of your steak story. In your story, a steak exists as a separate thing. In fact, in your story, steaks have special names, names which convey meaning and value to you, like tenderloin and porterhouse and ribeye. But I'll bet you have never considered whether or not the cow had a name. She had had enough of me. I mean, she got my point. You see, here's the thing about our beliefs. We don't want them pointed out to us, not even by us. We don't want to have our soothing stories interrupted. We don't want to be woken up from our script, from our reassuring routines. Otherwise, we'll have to get up, leave the comforting light, and walk into the darkness, into the unknown. And then, we may have to change. And that's really bad, isn't it? My co-writer Shannon is fond of saying, belief is the conclusion of thinking. In conclusions, routines, habits, dogmas, whatever you want to call them, are the ultimate comfort. Make no mistake, your beliefs, your scripts, limit your thoughts and your potential. They shelter you from experiences. They distort your perceptions, eliminate choice, and ultimately prevent you from discovering your truest self and living with a fullness of being. And that's what causes perpetual discontent, this lack of creativity and the slow suffocation of your unique inner spirit. Einstein, again, said that the important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. Unfortunately, you can never know beforehand what those reasons are, just like you can never know what you really want to do until you actually do it. You can't conceptualize curiosity, plan it out in detail. Your mind simply cannot imagine the richness of an actual experience or the chaotic and serendipitous nature of life, the random encounters and mind-changing discoveries. You have to experience life firsthand in order for the shift in perspective to become a reality. I mean, real feeling to you. I remember my first experience with a Japanese sushi bar. There was absolutely no way I was going to be moved from my belief, my prevailing concept and attitude about cold, raw, dead fish wrapped in seaweed, to a more favorable idea through some kind of, rational thinking process. Wasn't going to happen. Instead, I had to step into uncertainty, literally open myself up and experience it directly. It was then that I discovered the beautiful presentations and clean, amazing flavors. I would never have understood conceptually what that wonderful experience felt like had I not been curious enough to try it. And mahalo to my beautiful Hawaiian friends for encouraging me. Look, if you read the biographies of prominent people you admire, you'll invariably discover a particular experience that changed how they viewed their world. Something that knocked them out of their script and awakened their minds to new possibilities about what is good, true, and important. Through their serendipitous encounters, their lives acquired new meaning and purpose. And many of them encouraged us with their discoveries. Well, listen, the same thing will happen to you as you free your imagination and engage in more variety, curiosity, and experimentation. Change will lead to insight, and far more often than intellectualizing an insight will lead to change. By being curious and adding new, uncomfortable experiences, you'll expand your space of possibility. You'll free yourself from your past, from your limiting story, and open yourself to the amazing experiences called life. When I stepped into the darkness 4 years ago, when I freed my imagination from my beliefs and became curious about an idea for a movie, I had absolutely no idea what would happen. None. And it literally changed me and changed my life. And none of it would have become a reality if I hadn't pushed past my fear and tried something new that interested me, and then really took the time to focus on it. I have no special talent, only passionate curiosity. But that's enough. Passionate curiosity is the common trait of all inventors and creators. Newton was curious about why an apple falls from a tree, but the moon doesn't fall to the earth. Alexander Fleming was curious about a particular mold and discovered the world's first antibiotic. Darwin wondered why the Galapagos Islands have so many species not found elsewhere. Edison's insatiable curiosity brought the world electric light, sound recording, and motion pictures. Einstein wondered what the universe would look like if he rode through it on a beam of light. You see, if you look really closely, you'll find that curiosity is at the heart of all great business, technological, artistic, political, and philosophical invention. Life is moved forward by curious people, frustrated by the status quo and puzzled by the problems they see all around them. Curiosity is about doubt, questioning, and exploration. It's also about wonder and surprise. So in a word, curiosity is about being unsettled. The great 20th century rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel famously said, "An individual dies when he ceases to be surprised. I am surprised every morning that I see the sun shine again. When I see an act of evil, I'm not accommodated. I don't accommodate myself to the violence that goes on everywhere. I'm still surprised. That's why I'm against it, why I can hope against it. We must learn how to be surprised, not to adjust ourselves. I am the most maladjusted person in society. Actually, I think I am, but you know who else is maladjusted? The people referenced in that classic Apple computer ad that everyone loves. The crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They change things. They push the human race forward. And who do the crazy ones cite as their role models? Who has every mystic who has ever lived pointed to for transformative inspiration? I mean, the answer is found in every spiritual text and in the very last frame of that iconic Apple advertisement. It ends with the wide-eyed face of a beautiful child, a spirit filled with vulnerability, wonder, and love. To quote Jesus, "Unless you become again as a child, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven." That kingdom is within you, hidden, buried, caged. Really, think back again to those endless days of childhood. The world was so exciting and intriguing, wasn't it? I mean, everything was magical, big, bright, expansive, and colorful. We really looked at the world like learning to read. We considered everything, every single letter. We took our time. We saw reality through an unfiltered lens, through the eyes of curiosity, learning, and imagination, rather than the biased lens of knowledge and the calculation of reason. We never ceased being surprised, and we were immune to boredom. And so we could do or be anything, right? We used boxes and sticks to become astronauts and artists. We created fantastical characters and outrageous worlds. We drew whimsical pictures and cooked up wild ideas. We were free, complete originals, playful and curious, spontaneous and fearless, unsettled and maladjusted, just like 10-year-old Tilly Smith. In 2004, Tilly was on vacation with her mom, dad, and little sister on a beach in Thailand. And one sunny morning, they were walking along the beach when Tilly noticed something that made her curious. The tide had gone out, way out, and the water looked frothy. Her curious mind searched her memories and found an old news film that her geography teacher had shown her of a tsunami in Hawaii. Now, she was sure that's what was happening right there on that beach. So she tried to explain it to her parents, but they ignored her. So did the other people. I mean, what could a 10-year-old girl from England know about Thailand? Seriously. So Tilly started waving her arms and yelling hysterically at her father. Something inside her told her that she was right. Her father tried to ignore her, but she was making a pretty big scene. So he finally told the security guards, who alerted the lifeguards, who cleared the beach. Everyone went back to the hotel and climbed up to the 3rd floor and waited. In less than a minute, the first of the giant waves hit. In fact, they struck all over Southeast Asia, killing over 250,000 people. But there was one beach where no one died. The beach that an unsettled, unstoppable little girl named Tilly Smith had been on. You know that proverb, curiosity killed a cat? Well, the original expression was, care killed a cat. Tilly didn't care. She didn't overthink her instincts or try to prove herself to anyone, nor did she worry about people's reactions. She didn't suppress her feelings and wonder if what she was feeling was right or wrong, good or bad, concerned about the consequences of her actions. Tilly was living from her inside out, She trusted her curious, compassionate spirit and had complete faith in her inner voice, a voice that saved the lives of everyone on that Thai beach. I specifically said faith and not belief, because those two concepts are quite different. Remember, belief is a contraction of light, narrow, pinpoint focus and rational conclusions, a point of view. Belief is Coleridge's domain. It's a comforting conviction driven typically by a personal desire, conscious or unconscious. Belief is like crossing a footbridge stretched above a deep chasm. Your goal or desire for what's on the other side is what gets you on that bridge. And evidence that the bridge is safe and that you're making progress towards that attainment of that goal, right? Your story is what keeps you walking across. That's not faith. Faith comes from the heart. It's Keats. It's an expansion of light. It illuminates the entire scene and reveals the big picture in all of the connections. It requires neither a clear vision nor confirming evidence. I mean, not even a bridge. All faith requires is a feeling of truth, an intellectual instinct. And with that, it's a running leap across the chasm and into the unknown. Faith gets you airborne where everything looks strange and feels frightening. And it keeps you there, floating in uncertainty. The discomfort of uncertainty and the intense spirit of faith frolic together. And that's why acts of heroism, passionate love, great art, and the creative, uncompromising execution of bold visions are hard and noticeably scarce. And so is asking questions, at least for adults. I mean, even though questioning is the simplest and most effective way of learning, of getting closer to the truth. Because knowing begins with doubt and questioning. And asking questions is what opens our minds to possibility, to progress, in deeper, more meaningful connections. And yet, we've been conditioned to not ask questions. I mean, preschool children ask about 100 questions a day, while middle schoolers have pretty much stopped asking. Why is that? It happens because the world turns us into self-conscious characters in delusional stories, constantly worried about what others think about us. I mean, after all, questioning may make us look foolish, right? Or weak. Questioning may come across as, who knows, incompetence or complaining. It may make us look uncertain and slow everyone down. You know, there's a fascinating study in which teachers were asked how important they felt it was to teach creativity in their classes. They overwhelmingly ranked it at the very top of importance. But then the teachers were asked, who are your favorite students? And almost universally, the teachers chose the least creative as their favorites and the most creative kids as their least favorites. I mean, I've witnessed that same dynamic in organizations. Leaders stand up on stage and beg their people to question the status quo, right? To be more creative and innovative. But those curious people end up not being the ones who are most liked and valued because they disrupt everyone's comforting scripts. So yes, wonder is the source of all wisdom and progress. But to become as a child, to expose your vulnerability and ask questions, to not care what other people think about you is one daunting challenge. I once read about some Tibetan monks who were engaged in an age-old ritual. So for 5 days, they painstakingly laid millions of grains of colored sand onto a platform. And at the end of their ceremony, they planned to sweep it all away as a meditation on the fleeting nature of life. But with their mandala about an hour from completion, something fascinating occurred. A toddler wandered right onto the platform, kicking around the sand. The beauty of the monk's elaborate design was simply too much for him to resist. Now, the happy crowd of onlookers suddenly turned solemn. I mean, even the monks appeared stricken. Hours of work was destroyed in an instant. But what an amazingly symbolic event, a fascinating display of the impermanence of all things, and it was brought to life fittingly by an innocent child. Now you may be smiling like I am, but you wouldn't have been if it was your mandala or your spirited child. And that's because we hate it when our plans go awry or when we look bad to others. It's that silly script again. I've had my own sand mandalas destroyed on many occasions. Some took me years and a lot of money to create, and it really bothered me. It also used to irk me when I wasn't taken seriously or when others, considered me childlike, seemingly ignorant to the realities of their world of how things are done around here. But look, I've finally discovered two things. First, those seemingly crushing setbacks, look, they ended up releasing me from my script and moved me to a more exciting and liberating scene. And more importantly, those realities people wanted me to accept, they're how things are done around here, they weren't some kind of universal truth. I mean, time revealed most of them to be distorted and limiting. Seriously, their perspectives were flawed points of view. So enlighten up. Life is invented. It's your multicolored, three-dimensional art. No one else's. And it's as fleeting as a sand mandala. So ask the questions that you think are important to you, the ones that are on your mind. Live the unexplored experiences that interest you. Be curious, be brave, be uncertain. Oh, I know, here we go again. Back to uncertainty. Coleridge's biggest nightmare and therefore the cause of most of your mind's demons. Endless what-ifs, frightening reruns of anxiety and worry, incessant thoughts about what others are thinking about you, potential problems and an unknown future. But do you see, that's Coleridge's nature. I mean, his view is that life is simply a series of problems that reason can solve. And so if he doesn't have something to work on, he'll look for problems and even create them for you. Yes, he shuts down when you're in a flow state or in the zone. So of course you should use that knowledge to your advantage whenever you can by refocusing your attention away from his negative ramblings. I mean, through meditation or with a long walk in nature. But you can also quiet Coleridge down by giving him a puzzle to solve, something interesting to work on. It's up to you to manage the mental tension created by the two poets. Remember, Coleridge lives on the set of your imaginative mind. The question is, where do you want him to focus his attention? What do you want him to imagine and try to solve? If you're bored, if you let him run free on the set, he'll imagine what everyone is thinking about you, what you should and shouldn't be doing to stay safe and in control, and how your future may or may not play out. He's not a pessimist, not really. He's a planner, and one who's particularly interested in worst-case scenarios. So give him something else to work on. Stretch his imagination with a compelling question or project. Because there is nothing worse than a problem solver who has nothing interesting to do. But even after all of that, here's the reality of life. Coleridge will never completely go away. He will always be with you, concerned with your safety and therefore trying to keep you on edge. You see, that's how all great stories and movies work. They draw you in and keep you hooked to what's going to happen next, what's right around the corner. And so you always experience some level of doubt, which manifests in painful feelings of worry and avoidance. The key to living a meaningful, fulfilling life is to recognize that voice for what it is, push past those uncomfortable feelings, and then do what you want to do anyway. You see, ultimately, the state of mind with the most influence over your life is the one in charge of your intentions. Have you ever seen the movie A Beautiful Mind? It's a biographical drama based on the life of the mathematical genius and Nobel Prize winner, John Nash. Nash suffered from paranoid schizophrenia and experienced vivid hallucinations. I mean, he saw people who were not really there. He even followed their delusional advice, which nearly cost him his job and his family. But he eventually realized, through the power of curiosity and his passionate intentions, his desire to escape the madness of his story and live fully, that the people were not real, but rather a creation of his own mind. And through this sudden awareness, Nash simply stopped identifying with them. Instead of feeding, these voices with his reactions, he learned to ignore them. And as a result, although the hallucinations continued to appear to Nash, over the years they became quieter and quieter. His awareness freed him of their influence. And the same thing will happen when you become curious about the workings of your own mind and become aware of and learn to ignore Coleridge. But like Nash, you have to really, really want it. John Keats wrote, "Do you not see how necessary a world of pains and troubles is to school an intelligence and make it a soul?" Now, I'm certainly not advocating for a world of pains and troubles, especially not a world ravaged by disease like the one that took 25-year-old John Keats at the height of his genius. But the popular notion that we should try to eliminate or avoid all potential sources of pain, uncertainty, discomfort, heartache, or failure, is another misguided delusion, one driven by Coleridge's desire to stay safe and in control. Yeah, I know, we seem to be going around in circles. I hope this is becoming clear. If your intention during your short time here on earth is to avoid pain and discomfort, and it's your decision, then by all means let Coleridge lead you. He's got it pretty much all figured out. And in case he may have missed something, he'll stay glued to the outpouring of information from the world and advise you when you need to update your beliefs. But if you're here to live fully, with passion, and from the inside out, then let Keats lead you and embrace the discomfort and pain that comes with the pleasure of that inspired journey. Are you driven to be an athlete? Guess what? That's great. Then embrace your doubts and the discomfort of training and dieting. Do you want to start a business and make a difference? Great. then welcome the uncertainties, the long hours, and the constant adjustments. Maybe your passion is to perform or to create. Then face your insecurities and accept that you may be rejected, have to work 3 jobs or live in a cramped apartment, and struggle for years to get your work seen and appreciated, if you're lucky. This has nothing to do with willpower. I mean, people think willpower is some kind of invisible mental muscle, right? A mysterious inner strength that you can exercise and which becomes depleted. I mean, it's not. Quite simply, willpower is a battle. It's a clash of conflicting desires between those pushed by Coleridge in our happiness-obsessed culture, oh, a big, beautiful boat, right? And the ones whispered softly by Keats, more time to practice and create. Willpower is simply a choice, now or later, reality or possibility. I mean, are people who lack willpower lazy? Do they lack the cognitive power known as self-control? Absolutely not. Their desire for the good feelings of the world are simply greater than their desire for the spirited growth of their inner selves. Willpower is not a cognitive battle against your desires. It's an ongoing struggle between them. Give your dreams a fighting chance. Immerse yourself in the surroundings of possibility. Replace the superficial, external hype of Coleridge with the impassioned, meaningful pleas of Keats. Stay curious, especially about your own feelings and thoughts. Keep asking questions and do what you really want to do, even when you don't feel like it. Make no mistake, the world is changing rapidly. The future belongs to those unwilling to accept the stifling status quo, to those who stay excited, puzzled, and surprised. It belongs to those childlike people who are constantly asking questions and wondering how things work. It belongs to the geniuses who possess negative capability, the strength of character to pursue a vision even when it leads them into intellectual confusion and uncertainty. How do you know when you're in the presence of genius? You see it. I mean, you witness a passionate, wide-eyed maniac who actually believes she can change things. I've been in the presence of genius. It's impossible to miss. Geniuses don't want to be products of their environment. They want their environment to be products of them. They're not observers and critics. They're dreamers and doers. They explore and create, and with their passion and daring, move us all forward. A genius is a school teacher, like my daughter, who stretches the system and inspires her students to greatness. She's a consultant who imagines a radically new process and makes it come to life for the benefit of her clients and their risk-averse organizations. A genius is an entrepreneur who feels the fear, but like Sir Richard Branson exclaims, "Screw it, let's do it," and pushes forward with a bold new idea. She's a leader who says what corporate doesn't know won't hurt them and initiates a skunkworks project that ends up changing the direction of the company. Geniuses are misfits. I mean, like a pair of tight-fitting pants, they're uncomfortable and they often make others uncomfortable. Knowledge seldom leads to transformation. Rather, it is curiosity and discomfort with the current reality that provokes change, and with it, those unique experiences that inform and inspire us. As the Dalai Lama put it, easy times are the enemy. They put us to sleep. Adversity is our friend. It wakes us up. So wake up. You are not a character in a story. defined by an imaginary past. You are pure potential, the fundamental energy of the universe that wants to expand. So open up, be curious, and let it.